What is going on, beautiful people? It is Obscurist Tourist here, and today I come to you from Goodwood, Ontario, a town of just 663 residents, located about an hour's drive north of Toronto. Don't recognize the name? Perhaps you would know it better as Schitt's Creek, from the hit comedy show Schitt's Creek, starring Eugene and Dan Levy. And right behind me, this intersection is where the majority of the show was shot, save for the motel scenes, which were shot in Mono, Ontario. I'll get to that and show you that later. For now, if you look to my right, that right there, that is Cafe Tropical. And behind that blue building right over there, that is Bob's Garage. Bob's Garage, one of my favorite characters from the show. For now, let's take a look around Goodwood, Ontario. And there it is. We have entered Goodwood. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's just hold on a second here. Let's back up. Now, if you happen to have been living under a rock for the past 6 years, then perhaps you know nothing about Schitt's Creek, in which case, allow me to fill you in. Schitt's Creek just won all 7 of the Emmy Awards it was nominated for its final season. An Emmy Award record for drama or comedy. The show centers around the Roses, an affluent family from New York City, who suddenly awakes one day to find that they are completely broke after being defrauded by a business manager. Their one remaining asset is a town called, what else? Schitt's Creek. A town that they bought years earlier as a joke. But guess what? The joke's on them, because they have to move to this town and restart their entire lives. It is basically the Beverly Hillbillies, but in reverse, and done well. A classic fish out of water story. Now, the Rose family consists of video store magnate Johnny, played by the affable and legendary Eugene Levy, who got his start and starred in the groundbreaking TV comedy sketch show SCTV and classic movies like American Pie. His wife on the show is former soap opera actress Moira, played by the equally legendary Catherine O'Hara. She too got her start on SCTV, but she might be best known for her role in Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice! Don't say that 3 times. An absolute classic. The Roses' spoiled, uber fashion conscious son, David, is played by Eugene Levy's real-life son, Dan Levy, who is also the brains behind the show. And their daughter, Alexis, is played by the beautiful and super talented Annie Murphy. And I have to admit, ever since the show started on television, I have had a huge crush on Annie Murphy. So if Annie, you're watching this, call me. Been driving through these back roads for a little while now, and I was starting to get a little worried, but now that I see that sign, that's a good sign, because that's telling me I am in the town of Mono and that the motel, the Rosebud Motel, is very close. I see something up here, and wow, there it is. I don't know if you can see that, but there it is. The Rosebud Motel. Let's check it out. Let's pull in. This is it. This is the motel that played the Rosebud Motel on Schitt's Creek. And I know that the owner of the property has had a few problems with visitors, and lots of visitors, since the show became a massive hit over the past 6 months. Especially since the pandemic and the show went to Netflix. Something very interesting is that this motel is actually up for sale. And even though it looks abandoned, from what I hear, the owner has been using this for families and people who have been forced into isolation during the pandemic. So it's doing something good. But yeah, if you want a piece of television history, look it up. You could own this place. This place could all be yours. It's about 9 a.m. There's already quite a few people stopping to check out the motel. So you can only imagine what this would be like on a weekday, perhaps in the summer. Pretty busy road. And there she is, minus the infamous Rosebud Motel sign. They're up on the second floor, overlooking the office. And the office is right there. And that's where Stevie Budd spent the majority of her time in the first few seasons, though much of the series took place in two motel rooms, one occupied by Moira and Johnny, the other by David and Alexis. It seems that the majority of the show was shot on a soundstage back at CBC Studios. And right there on the right of room 5, which I would assume to be room 6, is the very room Moira and Johnny lived in for the duration of the show. And to the immediate right of that room is the room that David and Alexis shared. I know the interiors are not the same as on the show, but boy, would I love to have a look-see inside. And believe it or not, Schitt's Creek isn't the only major production to showcase this vintage motel, originally built as a party spot in the 1960s. In fact, it served as a backdrop for several other films and miniseries, including the 2016 Hulu series 11/22/63 and Netflix's The Umbrella Academy. And it even appeared in the opening scene of one of my all-time favorite movies, David Cronenberg's 2005 classic, A History of Violence. Now let's get back to that infamous Rosebud Motel sign. Well, I can tell you that it's been sitting in the lobby of the CBC since January 2020. It was only supposed to be showcased there for a few months, but then the pandemic hit, and luckily for me and you, I got to check it out. This main foyer here at the CBC is completely empty. I'm not even sure if I'm allowed to be here, but here I am. And as I pan to the right, there it is, like a beacon of light here, the red Rosebud Motel sign. And one of my favorite things on the show, something that slinked into the background of many shots as the series went on, was this, the Schitt's Creek Motel sign in all of its googie design glory. This sign right here, an absolute one of a kind. So I've been driving around and doing my little Schitt's Creek tour. And like all things in Ontario, you just never know what you're going to find. And look at this gem right here. This is the old Stardust drive-ins. What a great novel idea. And this one here in Sharon, Ontario was supposed to close after this season. So I've read. But because of COVID, drive-ins have had a bit of a resurgence. So perhaps this isn't the swan song of the Stardust. Let's hope so, because I planned to come here earlier this season, and I just never made it out, so hopefully I get that chance again. Love that. Sure does bring me back to those early years of going to the drive-in with my mom and dad. Another classic sign. Screen switching. That's a concept my parents perfected long ago. Love that move. But there's no screen switching permitted here. I'm unable to enter there right now, but you can see the massive drive-in screen back there, and how many people used to sneak candy and pop, and sometimes beer, into the drive-in. An old lost art of hiding contraband outside food. Some more classic old signs, and some of the stuff you could get at the concession stand, because who doesn't want some Kool-Aid to go along with your Planters? And I was passing through Stouffville, Ontario on my way to Goodwood, and look at what I stumbled upon. It's Ted's Veterinary Clinic, right here in the heart of Stouffville, just a 20-minute drive from Goodwood. Pretty neat find. And you might recognize these train tracks, an iconic image from Schitt's Creek. used in many of the transition shots from the show. And just over to the right here is another iconic place. This is the Goodwood Town Hall, which played the part of the Schitt's Creek Town Hall. Life imitates art, or perhaps it's more accurate to say that art imitates life here in Goodwood. See the private property and no trespassing signs here. Residents of Goodwood have been very vocal about not wanting tourists in the town because it basically got overrun in the summer, especially during the lockdown in various places around Ontario. So I'm going to be as discreet as possible during my visit here. And that right there is Roland and Joyce Schitt's house, the mayor of Schitt's Creek, played by none other than Chris Elliott, one of my favorite all-time actors. And just giving you a closer look at Bob's Garage. Much like the motel sign, the famous sign that denoted Bob's Garage is sadly missing. You'll also notice that all the accoutrements on the facade were also just for the show, like the oil change signs, old license plates, and even the old gas pump, all gone. Just to give you an idea of how close in proximity everything is here in Goodwood. Right across the street is Romney Goodwood. And you might recognize this place better as the Rose Apothecary, the store owned by David Rose and his partner, Patrick Brewer. Here's the inside of Romney Goodwood. And I gotta be honest, I think most, if not all, of the interior shots on the show were shot right inside here. It looks pretty much the exact same, minus the inventory. I wanted to take a look inside, but unfortunately, it's closed. Like most things, due to COVID-19, we will remain closed until we are open. It seems that Anina's Bake Shop on the northwest corner of the main intersection here on Concession Road and Highway 47, which, if I'm not mistaken, was never featured in the show, was a favorite by all the actors and crew whenever they were in town filming. And I've had one of their famous butter tarts, and that alone might be worth the drive to Goodwood. Delicious. And right above the exit, Eugene Levy and the cast of Schitt's Creek left some signed photographs as a gesture of thanks to Anina's and the town. It's really interesting to me how they made this tiny intersection seem so large on the show, even though that seems like a really weird thing to say, considering that the show is all about a really small town. But I digress. Let's cross the road and see if we can take a closer look at Cafe Tropical. And like everything else here, private property, no trespassing. And I'm keeping my distance. Basically, a perfect place for a stop sign. Well, I hope you enjoyed my little Schitt's Creek tour for you today here on a lazy Monday afternoon. First stop was Goodwood, then Mono, with a little Sharon, Ontario, thrown in as a surprise intermission. For now, it's Obscurist Tourist. I am saying goodbye to you. Stay beautiful, and you know what? Since you're here, why not follow my channel? Let's do us both a favor. Until next time.